All right, what is up, everybody? This is episode number 30 of Golden Dice Podcast. We are starting to climb up there. This is when,
almost as aged as Tommy.
Yeah, almost, and that's pretty old, man. Going to start having kids soon, I guess. On the podcast, we'll have a kid, and I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, with me, I got Scott. As you heard, for this episode, Scott, how are you doing today?
I'm on death's doorstep. I think I'm beat. Today's has been a long day. I just got home. I've been out of the house since 5:30 in the morning.
Sounds like a blast. So
and I'm getting home to do more.
It's a good 15-hour day so far right now.
Right? Oh yeah, we're gonna go 17, and then we're gonna do another one of those for the rest of the week.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. And I'm glad, Scott, that I have you and didn't get stuck with another one of our certain Golden Dice members named Shane for this week's episode.
Shane would be particularly useless in this episode. He doesn't leave the house.
Yeah, he doesn't go to tournaments. And with us this week, we have Steve, who is with Cascade Games. Steve, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And Steve has no idea who Shane is, so that just kind of proves.
I've heard things about Shane, but nothing good.
Yeah, of course. You'll never meet him. Cool. So yeah, tonight we're going to talk a lot about GQs, where they're headed, or Galactic Qualifiers, for anybody who doesn't know what GQ is, and just kind of let the community know of what your plans are for the next year or so, how they're evolving, what went well, what didn't go well. And some of this was covered on iRebel, so if you are interested in listening to 2 episodes about this, maybe there's some tidbits we'll cover that wasn't covered before. You can go back and check out that episode that was just posted in the last week or so, I believe. So Steve, I guess what would be your selling point almost? I guess if somebody were to come up to you, I guess almost
your
elevator pitch,
if it were.
Yeah, of what a GQ is.
And why should you play?
Yeah.
So the Galactic Qualifiers, as any good Destiny player should know, are one of your primary pathways to Worlds. You just need to 6-0 that event, and just a simple task for your average Destiny player to earn a Worlds invite. It also gives you the opportunity, of course, to win a ton of really great promo cards, the spot gloss cards, the acrylic battlefield cards, and then a variety of other stuff. So as we move into this year, we're going to see the introduction of a couple of new formats for the GQs. So when the spring block comes out, we'll get an introduction to the infinite format, which will cover all cards in the available pool. Right now you've got standard, which is the 2 most recent sets, and then, or blocks rather, and then trilogies, which is your current block. So once we have a third block, then we get to move into infinite. So the Awakenings block will fall out of standard, but we'll still have this infinite format where you can then play with all the cards. And then we're also adding this year some sealed qualifiers as well. So those will be timed. We'll probably only run those at the events where a brand new set is out. But I think it adds a twist, right, to that skill level player that says, you've got to make something out of what you've got, right? And personally, in just about any collectible card game I play, limited is always my favorite format. So hopefully we'll be able to scratch that itch for some Destiny players as well.
Awesome. With that, you talked about adding the infinite as a third possible way to play the game. Now, would that be something that would just become standard across like any GQ weekend? Because now normally these are held at like cons almost, and you have something Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Would you ever be open to just listening to almost feedback from players? Like, say you do infinite for a little while and some of the players you just start to see lower attendance and people would rather do standard or trilogy? Like, is that something that you'll just kind of, as the season goes on, just kind of analyze it as it starts unfolding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like it, everything that we do is really based around player feedback. I mean, we work with FFG. We're the boots on the ground, running the events. We look at what works and what doesn't. We listen to the players, figure out what they want, and then try and tweak things so that everybody's goals are getting met. We want players to have a good time in a competitive environment. We want to run a solid event. And we want to progress the game for FFG. So your feedback is critically important to us being able to do a good job. That doesn't mean that everything people come up with is going to get mixed in, but it's all definitely heard, right? And
Mhm.
and put back to FFG. So and you can see that one of the biggest changes from this year, although I didn't get a lot of direct feedback, the double elimination format in the GQ, I just saw so many players go 0-2. Like, you come in, it's a big tournament, you're pumped, you want to do well, and then you 0-2 those first two games, and I just saw so many sad faces walk up, and it's like, well, I guess I'm done. I'll get my tickets now. So we've eliminated double elimination. So you can now, if you want to go 0-6 in the GQ, you are more than welcome to at this point. So, but that to me was I don't want anybody to have I mean, losing's a feel bad, but to lose and then also not be allowed to play anymore, that's just no fun, right? So, we worked with them. I was like, hey, we should take this out. There are definitely players that are not having a good time when they go 0-2 and get no redemption, right? Like to
Hmm.
come back, and so I went 0-2, but then I went 4-0, and so I finished 4-2, and I got a bunch more tickets than I would have gotten if I had just had to go play in the pods or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
that's a perfect example of feedback that we took and tried to help mold that player experience to be better.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like last year when the double elimination was announced, we're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense because you have the pod events and the side stuff to do. So it seemed like the idea was, all right, you get knocked out after your two losses, and that going to lead you into doing the pods. But yeah, you're right. It's people pay an entry fee, and you're only it's something that, like, I remember from like wrestling tournaments and things like that. It's like you pay a big entry fee, and you're only guaranteed in this case two matches, but in that case one, and it sucked.
Yeah.
It's like, if you get a tough matchup first two rounds, and you're done for the day, and you feel like maybe you wasted a little bit of money, and maybe you didn't bring as much spare cash to do as many of the pods.
Right, exactly. And I think that you know the primary goal is these are games and people should have fun, and let's let folks make their own decision about when they want to stop playing.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, as you mentioned, the showing up, taking a day off. Sometimes some of these cons were Thursday, Friday, even. So sometimes people are taking off and to spend the money for a day pass to the con and then the $20 entry fee to the actual Destiny tournament, and then only getting two games out of it. Definitely feels a little bit bad.
Yeah, it's a bummer. And then I think that brings us to our other changes where we've really now started to make we listen to a lot of feedback from all the communities really about that exact issue of having to buy all these badges, and really worked to the only conventions that we're really at this year. I mean, it's a few, but as opposed to last year, I added it up. And if you attended like all the events and bought all the badges, you were spending over $1,000 on badges to get into conventions. And so this year we have our kickoff at PAX Unplugged,
Hmm.
which is absolutely hands down one of my favorite shows. I've only been to one because there's only been one, but I had a blast there last year. And it's like mini Gen Con, right? Without the Gen Con ticketing system, which just it makes it really fun. There's so much gaming going on. There's always something to do. So there's that one to kick everything off. And then that's bookended by Gen Con at the kind of the for some games like L5R season finishes there, and then you move into Worlds. But now X-Wing and Destiny are going to run all year long. So there's the Gen Con ticket, which again most people understand what they're getting there. And then the only other two conventions that these events are going to be in is Adepticon in Chicago, which is like a $30 badge or something, and ETX Evergreen Tabletop Expo in Seattle, which again is like a $25 or $30 badge. So we've brought the money you have to outlay for badges down by 80% over what it was last year. $700 or $800, and I think that was another good thing, and that gives us also a lot of more flexibility in these standalone events to try different things. We have a little bit more control over the space, and hopefully that encourages players to show up, because now you're not fighting a convention crowd to get lodging and parking and all that kind of stuff, right? They're at hotels or small convention centers, and with lots of easy food options all around them and that type of thing. So I think that this year that we're going to have a lot more of those things, and have people focused in a smaller group too, where you've got a bunch of fans of the Fantasy Flight games, across all four games, because we're doing Keyforge as well this year, get a chance to kind of even build up the community even better, hopefully, and leverage the local community a little bit better, which is something that kind of gets lost in a bigger show as well. So as we are going to Phoenix in January, where we just ran an X-Wing Open last year, but the X-Wing community is really strong, and a bunch of those people played Destiny as well, and so the chance to kind of bring those communities together and bring these events to the really strong communities is exciting and fun. And the Fantasy Flight Games communities in general are just absolutely some of my favorite folks to do events with. So I'm excited too.
Yeah, and that was something that you just touched on was going to be one of my questions too, is just, are you looking to move away from cons that aren't like the big ones? And because I think that is important. Like, I think, as you mentioned, like PAX Unplugged, I mean, not only is it a larger con, it has a lot of things that you can do, like almost like a mini Gen Con, as you'd mentioned. Like, it's also relatively cheap. Like, it was $65 for 3-day pass, which, looking at even other PAX, like PAX East was crazy expensive from what I heard. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but I remember just thinking like, wow, they paid, almost like double what I paid just for 2 days, and I'm going 3 days.
Sure, yeah, and the PAX East badges sell out in like 4 days, right? And if you don't get in, you just don't get to come play at that event, which is also no fun for people.
Yeah.
Now, what would a maybe just a little like clarifying, like a non-convention Galactic Qualifier event, would you guys just rent out like an area and still have everything that you would normally have going on, just all FFG games, like still pods, still the standard trilogies, infinite type formats? And
formats aren't going to change from show to show, other than unless if something new is coming out that's going to allow us to make a change to take advantage of a new set or whatever, right? So you're going to get the same stuff. Actually, I have figured out the timing, and we're managing like a ton of seats at PAX Unplugged and some really big groups. The standalone events are going to be a little bit smaller, and so the schedules and the pre-reg and everything is currently up for Phoenix and Denver and Atlanta, and I've reconfigured the Destiny schedule, so you're actually getting 2 Galactic Qualifiers a day at those weekends. So the weekend in Phoenix or Atlanta or Denver is you've got a standard and a trilogy event each day. So a lot of people only want to play standard or only want to play trilogy, right? And now instead of only having one day to do it, you've got an option of 2 days. Because Destiny is really pretty quick and easy to run. Like we can move through, a 6-round qualifier in about 5 hours. So I was like, well, shoot, we should just do 2 of them, right? Like, why not? So that's another thing I'm really excited about, is just to give people more opportunity to play and take more chances, right? At getting their world spot or grinding through tickets to get spot glosses if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, it's I mean, one of the benefits of playing Destiny, being a player of Destiny, coming from I guess specifically most recently more of FFG's miniature games, or even the now defunct Star Wars LCG. Yeah, Destiny events are snappy. If
Yeah.
you were doing a 6-round Star Wars LCG event, you're having to play 2 games per round. You're not getting anywhere.
Right.
It's a 10-hour event.
Yeah. So because of the fast play, it made more sense to kind of back them up against each other, right? And I think we've got it timed out so that if you're playing all the way through round 6, you're still going to have time to grab a quick bite to eat and start the afternoon tournament as well.
That's cool.
Steve, so as I currently look at, as Infinite's not here, I was checking out PAX Unplugged's schedule, and it has 2 trilogy and 1 standard. So Friday and Sunday are trilogy, and Saturday is standard.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason behind that? Like, did FFG want to start pushing trilogy simply because it's a easier entry point, or maybe because the next set is rotation, and Worlds is basically going to be trilogies as it is now with another set? Or was there specific reasoning behind that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right? Like trilogy, like you say, it is the easier entry point, right? So, especially given that, like that, I mean, you had a reprint on Awakenings, which kind of slowed the whole start of the game when the product ran out and there wasn't any around. But trilogy gives players who are just getting into the game a fairly easy pathway to get the cards they want to get and play the decks they want to play, in trilogy at least, without having to possibly lay out a bunch of money for cards out of the older block. So that's why the focus on PAX Unplugged is there. Also will be hot on the heels of the Across the Galaxy release. So it should be an interesting and still evolving meta, which we just wanted to give a chance to.
Oh yeah, it's going to be the Wild West.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for it. Even today, the database has just about every card. I think there may be like 5 short. And I was sitting down trying to make trilogy decks. I was like, "Where's Force Solution? Where's how do I make money? Where's my ramp cards?" it was quite a challenge, but I'm like excited because I haven't really approached trilogy before like that. So having 2 days as the main formats really for that weekend is super exciting, especially with the world seat on the line. It's still something big to play for. That almost leads me into another question of almost how are you trying to attract casual players within this scene? Now, I feel like with GQs, competitive players know that a world seat is on the line. They're probably a little bit more interested in grinding pods and getting some of these spot gloss stuff, and they don't really mind paying the fee of the cons and the $20 entry for the specific tournament. But say somebody's maybe wandering around the con and hadn't played Destiny before, is there something like set up where they could go to Cascade's booth or FFG's booth or however it's set up and get like a demo game going? Are there starter games? Is that available?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think that FFG will have demos running in their booth. We'll also have and PAX Unplugged is different this year than last year. And I'll mention this because I've gotten a couple of questions about it. So last year, there was one floor, the expo hall and the gaming hall, and they rolled an air wall down the middle when the expo hall closed. This year, it's actually on 2 levels. So there's the expo hall on the upper level, same as last year, and then there's the dedicated gaming hall downstairs.
Yeah.
And that's where we'll be. FFG will be upstairs. And so in our area, we'll have, a sea of tables, running all the different games, but we'll also have some specific cutout booths where we will be demoing all 4 of the Fantasy Flight games. And then we are running Learn to Play events, which have always been really successful. It's, you buy a starter, we sit people down in groups of however many, and kind of go over the basics and get people into the game. And then I think then the next logical entry point from there is if people feel like they have, a basic handle on the mechanics and now they just need more cards, you've got your Rivals draft pods where it'll give you the opportunity to sit and play in that limited environment, which, is sometimes like the experienced limited player knows exactly what cards to pick and try and put together from a theme. The inexperienced limited player still gets a chance to look at cards and really kind of discover the game, I think, and figure out those interactions as they're looking at cards and stuff. So for the new player, those are the things we've got going on, right? And the Learn to Plays at conventions that we run are typically fairly popular and tend to. It's not right. It's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. You're like, hey, we've got a card game, and they're like, oh, and we're like, oh, it's Star Wars, and they're like, yes, please. So, and I think a lot of people's experience is similar to mine, where I got like a Kylo deck and a Rey deck, right? And I started playing, and I was like, okay, this is fun. I dig this. I actually like the rolling the dice and the randomness of it, and now I need Han Solo and Chewbacca because I want to have a deck with those guys in it and play, right? It's like having familiarity with a property like Star Wars and being able to put stuff together. And I feel like to a point it's like you get to tell your own story with your deck, right? Well, here's my Star Wars story, and it's these guys, and I'm gonna win this way or win that way, right? And that I think is probably one of the really appealing things about the game.
Yeah, it's definitely easy to, like you said, just get people to sit down. Hey, Star Wars card game, let's do it. And
right.
So I think offering those Learn to Play events, pods type thing is super great for the potential thing, especially these cons. You could get random people. Now, if it's the structured just GQ, you might get less of that unless you can steal, some of those other FFG games that people have been playing.
Yeah, right. And obviously there's a lot of crossover between X-Wing players and Destiny players because they love Star Wars and they want to play all the games. And so I think in those those smaller standalone events, that's where you're going to get the person who comes in and says, yeah, I'm going to play in the X-Wing Open today, and then I'm going to play in the GQ tomorrow on Sunday morning if I'm not in the finals, and then I'm gonna play Keyforge pods all afternoon or L5R or whatever whatever they want to do, right? And so the conventions are still where there's going to be a lot more options to get new players familiar with the game, and the standalone events are going to be probably the more competitive players that are there to win, and the stakes might be higher at those events because most people that are showing up are going to be very familiar with the game. You're not going to get the casual passerby, like the person that's staying at the hotel that's like, what's going on in here? But maybe because you got Star Wars signs up front, so which always seems to like draw people like moths to a flame,
Well, they spent a lot of money to presumably a lot of money licensing the IP, so that better be the case.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another, I guess, question is that iRebel, you had mentioned starting to restructure ticket costs and almost like the economy of those things. Is that something you're maybe able to expand upon? I don't know how much more information you might have had then, but for the listeners of, what does that exactly mean? Are they going to get more from pods? Are cards going to cost less? Are the mats going to cost less, et cetera?
Yeah, and so that's like that's exactly the kind of feedback that we gave to Fantasy Flight about the prize wall and how it worked, and that was a I had a conversation with them today, and that was a big focus of it. Like, there's when there's spot glosses on the table and there are 12 tickets, and there's the playmat that you could have bought for $20 as an add-on to your entry, and that playmat is 16 or 24 tickets. Like, no one's taking a playmat, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that the
so
first.
yeah, so we had this really cool like double player playmat with
Yep.
Obi-Wan and Kylo on or whatever, right? And
Mall.
um, no one took
Yeah.
a playmat. No one.
Yeah,
I've still got a lot of those.
I remember it
Right.
because PAX Unplugged. It's local to us, and it was the first one, the first GQ
Mhm.
last year. And when people are thinking about like, oh, what am I going to get? And there's all these different spot glosses to get, and they're 12,
Yeah.
and the mat's more than double that. And people are doing math in their head. They're looking at the eBay on their phone, like, why would I spend 30 for that when I could get 2.5 spot glosses, which at the time were like, you know, flying off eBay for $300. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't think that mat is made of gold.
Right. And we can't, as we look at that economy, we can't, we're not gonna, I still have, the spot glosses from last year, and those will still be part of the pricing, but,
Hmm.
you can't, the secondary market can't control
No.
the cost of pricing, at the event, right? So it's not like now a Yoda spot gloss is going to be 40 tickets, and
Hmm.
Sienna Ray is going to be 2 because no one wants her, right? Like that's not going to happen. There are going to be some changes, and we're still really working through that, trying to come up with the right numbers for all that stuff. But
Hmm.
as long as supplies last, the older cards will be available. We haven't settled on exactly how that all breaks down. I think most likely it will kind of fall along the lines of possible pricing by block. So
Okay.
the older ones, as things fall out of trilogy or fall out of standard, right? Then because they're neat to collect, but as
Less
sets
utility.
rotate, it's like, well, now I've got this plastic card that sits in a box, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of the direction we're headed on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, why use my tickets on a Kylo 1 spot glass from the first starter when, Yoda spot gloss exists type thing. If you're
Yeah,
going to have
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, so I think you'll see as the spot glosses fall out of rotation, they will drop to a lower, ticket tier price.
And now, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but do you know how many spot glosses debuted at PAX Unplugged last year?
Let's see. I just spent the morning like sorting everything I have. So, it was. I think we started with 14, and then added. Well, because we added one at most events.
Hmm.
And sometimes they were battlefields, and usually they were spot gloss characters, right? So I think the total right now is 20 characters and 6 battlefields. I think that's right, 6 or 8, maybe.
Is that something with the new new cycle of Galactic Qualifiers? Is that something you'll try to match at PAX Unplugged and have 14 new ones, or is it you'll be still kind of slowly rolling them out, maybe 1 or 2 new ones at PAX Unplugged and 1 or 2
Um,
at the next GQ?
yeah, I don't know exactly how many new cards we're getting, but I know that we're getting uh, spot glosses from both Way of the Force and Across the Galaxy. So I would imagine that we will be somewhere in that 10 to 15 range, and then different ones dropping in as the year progresses, and certainly as the new sets drop and all that kind of stuff, right? Like
Hmm.
we're not gonna roll through June and July with just across the galaxy spot gloss cards.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be conducive to attendance or
Yeah,
getting
I mean,
tickets spent.
I think that having those new ones drop is just, it's one more reason to come to a new event, right? It's like, okay, well, now this one's out, and so I need to go try and get one.
Yeah, because I mean, we got first dibs, so it was kind of cheating. But then we did end up missing out on some cool ones that came out later, so it evened out in the end, sort of. I think we still got the better end of the deal with it being first.
Yeah, certainly, like Yoda and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, like I have a few left, but they got hit hard all year long, and then the new ones that dropped, there was an initial buzz, but I don't know that many of them ended up being totally playable. Like I know the ones that came out after were Hondo and Jar Jar, Dr. Aphra.
There's Tarkin in there, I believe.
Tarkin was in there, and he's very popular. And I think those are the 4 characters, and then a couple battlefields. So we ended up rolling out 6. So yeah, that all sounds about right. Like 14 characters, and then 4 more, and a couple more battlefields.
Yeah, I'm excited. This will be my first GQ, actually. I was away last year for PAX Unplugged, and I got to tell you, like looking at those prices on eBay, it was like so tempting, but I was like, I could either buy a spot gloss or I could buy like 2 boxes of actual products.
Right.
You could buy like 3 boxes easily, almost.
Yeah, well, especially when they first dropped.
Yeah, I mean,
after a while, certain ones came down, but
yeah, I mean, we have some Luddite friends that don't have eBay accounts, so I was the the middleman in the transaction.
Yeah, but I think it'll be nice. Like I think that kind of fixing that economy, and people not feeling like the whole reason they're there is to grind to 12 tickets to get the one spot gloss they want. We'll try and make that all more manageable, and then give people the opportunity who do want to collect them to actually be like, okay, well now this card from Awakenings that I won't play is only half the tickets that it used to be, so yeah, I'm going to pick one up so I have a collection, right? And so I think that it's appealing on a couple different levels that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, you had mentioned earlier talking about mats, and I believe this was confirmed, but just so people know, the Thrawn and Hera mats are going to still be at PAX Unplugged, and new ones will come when Set 7 drops. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So Thrawn and Hera will be the mats for Unplugged and Phoenix, Toronto, when we get all that locked down. And then the next one is March. So, and at the end of the Adepticon at the end of the month. So theoretically, like that is the show that will happen there. Again, like I don't have any inside information on release dates of sets, but I think it's pretty widely known that somewhere in March is when we should see a new block. So if it's not that show, it'll be at Atlanta Denver in April would be. So one of those 2 shows is where we're going to get new mats.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, it partially stinks for people who went last year, but I guess somebody like me who didn't, I'm excited to be able to pick up those mats.
I mean, nice. They're both really great mats. So, I understand that a lot of people that want them already have them. But we'll still have them. There's always somebody looking for those mats, I'm sure. And even after they're gone, I believe just like the older spot glosses, that they'll continue to be, on the prize wall as an item while supplies last, type of thing.
Yeah. And I guess you kind of alluded to this over your vision of GQs for Destiny, and that you're just trying to, get it so there's a good balance of cons, having a few big ones a year that do well as a con as well, but also just trying to move towards a structure of independent, GQs with the games that you will be running. But I had a general almost question on Destiny. Now, I feel like running the GQs, you're probably somebody that I would say has like a pulse almost on the game. You know, you see an attendance of the GQs. Now, of course, there's different factors for every single one. But almost, do you feel the game is doing well? Do you feel like it's been like a worthwhile investment for Cascade to be running these things? Is Destiny, do you feel like in a good spot currently?
Yeah, I do. I think it's real good. I think that some of the things that hampered it early on were availability of product and some kind of wonky release schedules. And it certainly seems like that stuff's on track now. And now you're really, you kind of went through some growing pains through this first year and a half. And now I think it's really going to start to hit its stride as the sets release and the, because you had, right, like first you had a limited availability of product, so it had some trouble getting started, and it lost some players because they're like, where's the, like, I couldn't get the card, I want the cards, I can't get the cards. And then the delay in the middle set kind of put it in the same spot where the meta just kind of got stagnant, right? And so with scheduled releases and a constantly shifting meta, I think that it's definitely on an upswing, right? And that's what's going to keep it healthy and generate the long-term player to stay in, because it stays fresh instead of, well, now I'm just back here with my same deck I've been playing for 4 months and I'm getting a little bored of it now, right? So so yeah, I think it's in a real good spot.
Yeah, that wasn't like a trap question for you or anything. I was just generally
curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I personally think the game is in a good state as well. I think it's an exciting time. We had a little bit of a lull after Nova and with a little bit of a gap between things, but I think it'll be just fine. Maybe a little disappointing that there's no regional dates just yet. I don't know how that's not out, but having the Galactic Qualifiers to look forward to is definitely
yeah, and I think part of that is just kind of like the other thing, that as we scheduled things, that we wanted to make sure. Last year we did not do a great job of getting announcements up and locking things in, and then sometimes we were in spots where it's like, well, there was a regional here last week, but this is the time we can get the space. So we worked with FFG this year to kind of pin down our event schedule, so that then they could kind of try and, as much as they could, coordinate that with regionals and everything. So I think you'll see regional stuff soon. And the goal was to not create, that overlap of a player having to make a choice between going to a GQ or going to their regional. So,
Yeah.
Which is, those are tough decisions to make. And so I think, FFG and us have been working to make sure that we don't put players in that spot, and so that everybody can play in as many premier level or regional level events that they want to.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of thing, a lot of balls in the air in that sense. So you have to kind of see what you can fit where, and it can get a little complicated depending on how far away is far enough away that it's not necessarily in the same sphere of influence. How far do you expect people to travel and things like that?
Yeah, exactly. And we also had some, we had certain geographic areas that got overwhelmed. Like we ended up running like 3 or 4 Galactic Qualifiers in Texas, which I'm sure Texans will tell you, well, it's Texas, so it better be big, right? But it seemed to kind of detract from the overall attendance, because I got really familiar with the Texas players, because they would come to all of them. But I think this year we have about the same number of events, but they're spread out. Instead of like cramming 15 of them into 8 months and then having nothing to do for the second half of the year or after Gen Con, our schedule is out through Gen Con right now, but we will be posting more events for more GQs for the rest of the year as well. So there's going to be a couple more locations in some of the notably absent places like Texas and likely California, and then probably one other East Coast location.
Cool. Yeah, that's good to know that those things will be in consideration. When was PAX East last year? Was that like a March? I don't exactly remember when that
PAX
was.
East was end of March, beginning of April. I think first week. I think it's the same time as it is this year, like that first weekend in April.
Cool. Would that be the other? I guess one almost in this area. Or was there really any in like Florida, like south on the East Coast?
No, not
Swamp.
there was Atlanta at MomoCon, and this year's Atlanta event is in conjunction with MomoCon, but again, it's not inside the convention, so you don't need to buy a badge to go to it. There's the Omni Hotel is attached to the Georgia World Congress Center, the convention hall where MomoCon's happening, and so we're gonna have basically the entire side event schedule running inside MomoCon concurrently with the main events and side events also running in the Omni hotel area. So, but Atlanta's about as far southeast as we get. I'd love to go to Florida, but or North Carolina, South Carolina, something like that. It's just like we're in Portland, Oregon, so you can't get much further away from from Florida than we could be in Seattle, I guess, and that would be a little bit further. But it's it's a stretch, right? Like and so some of that goes into consideration, but and then you also know like the Star Wars Celebration jumps all over the place. And like 2 years ago it was in Florida, and this year it's in Chicago, and and then they do it every other year or whatever. So we don't have, we've added Toronto as sort of your East Coast kind of location, and we had Destiny at Adepticon last year too. So there's they track along population centers, right, to a point. But then it's also, like I mentioned earlier, it's like, where are the communities that are strong, and those are the places we also want to go.
Generally one last thing I wanted to touch on a bit. I don't know if Scott has any other
I do.
questions, or he's got a whole arsenal of them.
Yeah.
I guess, and almost as a way to help you, I know that so your website is cascadegames.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on there, I know you can make an account, and then from there you can take almost like a certification exams, and you have it for a few different games. Like I know Destiny, because I took that and ended up passing it. Then there's like X-Wing, Pokemon, and a few others, I think. And so that's almost to make people aware. Like, and I guess my question would be, how are you guys doing in terms of judges? If you guys are going somewhere, is that something you've been struggling to get? Is that something that we should say right here, that if you're looking to judge one of these Galactic Qualifiers and, you get certified and everything like that, there's going to be a spot for you type thing? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So the tests definitely need to be updated, right? Some of them are a little behind. You've got a lot of rules questions about older sets and nothing about new sets. So, but absolutely, we're always looking for help. Any of these places that we go. And so if you don't feel like playing, but you'd like to help out and be involved, yeah, definitely, sign up through our staffing portal. That'll give you a list of everywhere that we're going and we have applications open for. Apply to those games. If you've taken our tests and proven that you have, some level of knowledge, that's certainly helpful. And absolutely, we want players and judges, right? It's all part and parcel of building a strong community.
Yeah.
Is there something that the judges receive almost as a little like enticing thing? I don't know if you're allowed to say that on air or anything, but
yeah. So historically, what we've done is done any of the participation promos for folks and the mat. and I'm working through FFG, sort of a judge package that you don't get to play, and you want a chance at some stuff, and so we're trying to come up with a kind of a solid judging promo package that gets standardized across these events.
Cool. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
They should be rewarded for giving up their
I mean, at that
chance
point,
to play the game.
it's tough.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And we've done, like, it was an uphill battle, right? Like getting folks, but we've built a pretty good stable of people, across the country. But I will never turn away, good judges.
Yeah, that can obviously be a hard role to fill at times.
Yeah, I mean, one of the nice things about Destiny is, it's pretty straightforward. You compare it to something like Magic, where you've just got layers and layers of fast effects and timing issues and things like that, and Destiny just kind of eliminates most of that stuff, and it makes judging it far easier than having to remember first all the timing rules, and second a card pool of 15,000 cards versus the relatively smaller pool of Destiny cards. So
it's it definitely is a little bit of an easier thing to get into if you were new to judging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Scott, you got any got your final questions ready for Steve?
Yes, I've got two. I got two ready.
Did you have any of Shane's questions you wanted to ask before that?
No, Shane doesn't get questions because Shane doesn't go to events. If Shane went to events, Shane could get questions.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so this is a really important one for the listeners of our show. They very much want to know, given that it was a topic in one of our most recent podcasts. Do you have a favorite musical?
Do I have a favorite musical?
Tommy's favorite musical is Newsies. He can sing all of the songs from Newsies. He's never seen the musical Crybaby, but he's a big Newsies fan.
Yeah, are you talking like Broadway musicals, or musical movies are acceptable? Yeah,
I mean, musical movies are more than acceptable.
Okay, let's see. Crybaby is a good choice.
So people know Crybaby.
Yeah. Gosh. Let's see. Oh, okay. So this doesn't really count, but have you ever watched Crazy Ex-Girlfriend? It's a musical TV show.
Okay, so no,
I guess we'll count it. I guess.
Is that a Netflix thing?
You should count it because they've got some ridiculous songs in there that are just fabulous.
All right, so Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So now we've expanded Tommy's musical horizons even further.
Yeah.
He's going to be binging a new show this week.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I don't want to embarrass myself, but I watched a lot of Glee too. So,
I mean, I've stumped for Glow, so that's yeah. Everybody's got their things. All right, so that was an important thing that I wanted to get out of the way. I know Tommy was just sitting at home. He's on the edge of his seat with bated breath, just wanting to know.
Yeah.
My second question, and it's probably again more television related. Do you watch Top Chef at all?
I have watched Top Chef. I watch more the other one, Chopped.
Okay.
Is that the one? Is that the one where they got to run into the refrigerator and grab their ingredients?
They all have to run every one of those.
I guess they all run.
Shows, they got to do that.
Right?
But yeah, that's the one where it's like 3 and they go through 3 rounds, and at the end of the episode, there's a winner.
Yeah, I like that one, and Beat Bobby Flay too.
Okay, so I think Jack knows where I'm going with this. I wanted to give a little plug to a friend of mine.
Sure.
Funny that you mentioned Chop, because I actually also worked with a guy that was recently on a few episodes of that. But a friend of mine who's a big Star Wars fan, a really talented guy that I have had a chance to work with. He's actually going to be on the upcoming season of Top Chef. His name is Eddie Conrad. He's
Nice.
from Philadelphia, so unfortunately, probably can't make PAX Unplugged because he has to work for a living. But he's a really talented guy. Yeah. He's going to be competing on that season. They've already filmed it. He lied to all of us and said that he was going to France for a few months, which was clearly didn't make any sense because he's got a young child. Now it's all coming into play. But he's a really talented person. He's a really cool guy. He's one of those people. He's like into games, but peripherally into games. But I was able to convince him to play Star Wars Rebellion with me, which is, probably one of the heaviest board games that you'll find. That's for someone that's not familiar with it, that's like a 5 or 6 hour experience in a lot of ways. So he's he's a big Star Wars fan, and for anybody that's into like cooking shows or whatnot, I would definitely suggest that they tune in that season and see what he can do, because he's just one of the most talented people that I've had the experience to work with in my career in restaurants, and I think he's going to do a lot of really amazing things on the show, and then subsequent to the show, once the world gets a look at him,
Right on.
Okay, but how many prize tickets for the prize wall does he get from that show for Spot Gloss?
From Top Chef? I mean, if they win, 100,000 prize tickets.
Perfect. It's going to get
all into US dollars.
He's going to just buy out all the Spot Glosses, basically.
I'm not sure what the exchange rate is, but
Cool. I mean, that kind of wraps up what we were trying to get at you. I think there's a lot of good information and kind of prep people for the upcoming GQ season. And for PAX Unplugged, I guess we should announce, at least here, we've kind of talked about it a little bit to some of our Destiny community friends, but we will be streaming at PAX Unplugged all 3 days. So, that coverage will be there, which is exciting, because I don't believe did you get streaming last year? Was there issues with it last year?
We did not have streaming at PAX Unplugged last year for Destiny. X-Wing got streamed, L5R to a certain extent, but over the course of last year, I built up a ton of relationships with people, and in general, our philosophy is this content is here. We can get you space, we can get you power, and we'd love to get this out there. So there's kind of an open call to the communities to show up to these things and get the content out there. I'm happy you guys are going to be there and getting some more eyeballs on it. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. So as we wrap up here, if you guys are looking to follow that coverage, we're on YouTube and Twitch. It'll be streamed on both of those things at the same time. So whatever you prefer. I think Twitch is a little bit more of a clear picture, but you can do that. Just type in Golden Dice Podcast and we will show up to those things. We got Facebook, Twitter as well. And also, if you are looking to support us, we have the Patreon page in which you can join our Discord and get a chance to talk to me, Tommy, Scott, and Shane is sometimes around. He has his own little title, not on GDP anymore. He's just Shane. And yeah, so we offer some thank yous at times to our Patreons with Destiny compatible items. So yeah, if you're looking to support us and helping us, do things like covering PAX Unplugged, that would be a huge help. Scott, do you have any final thoughts before we give the sign out to Steve? We'll let him close us.
I got a lot of final thoughts. I'm very excited for the upcoming GQ. I've got to, finagle my way out of work. That's what sucks when you miss 2 months of work because you got a bum knee. Then you come back and they don't want to give you any days off. But I think I'm going to make it work. If not, I'm going to be there during the day, just getting to hang out, maybe participating in some of the events, some of the side events and things like that. Super excited for it. I think it was one of the best run larger FFG events that I've been to, and I've been to Gen Con a number of times. I've been to other conventions. I've been to big regionals, and I've been to Worlds. And last year PAX Unplugged was among the better run of them, and I think that's obviously says something about the staff that Steve and Cascade Games has as far as their ability to run big events in an efficient and an effective manner.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Cool. Now, Steve, if there's anything that you would like to leave the listeners with, whether it's extra ways for them to find you, I'll have links to your website and Facebook page as well in the description. Oftentimes people take this opportunity to insult Shane. So, I mean, you can just really, you could do whatever you want.
Well, I feel like I've taken enough jabs at Shane so far, so I think I'll leave you guys with we're really excited to have a chance to run these events again. We've hopefully made some changes that are going to improve the overall enjoyability of the events. Please get pre-registered now. For any and all that you would like to come see us at. Again, just cascadegames.com. Click on the icon of the show you're looking at. You can pre-register right from there. And if you are interested in judging more so than playing, sign up for the staffing portal and take the test and see if you can't come join us that way. Other than that, always also be checking the Facebook, our Facebook page. There are events, Facebook events for each of the tournaments, which is a really probably the best place to put questions per event, just because it's once I start a big thread, like I did the big announcement thread and I was trolling through 40 comments and I'm like, I'm not sure, I've answered this before, I don't know. So if you've got your questions, drop them on this Facebook event page for that event, and we will get them answered as fast as we can.